Okay, it's a little bit after start time, so I think we'll go ahead and get started as people trickle in. Again, I wanted to welcome you all today to today's webinar by the Housing and Services Resource Center. It's called Meeting People Where They Are. And I want to introduce myself. My name is Erica McFadden. I am the Director of the Office of Independent Living Programs at the Administration for Community Living. We're an operating division under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I'm going to be serving as the facilitator for today's webinar, and it's a privilege to have so many of you here with us today. And I just want to let you know your involvement in this webinar is essential for us to have an engaging discussion. So we look forward to that. A couple of items we wanted to go over as we get this started. One thing I wanted you all to know is the meeting is being recorded. So if you're on the meeting, that means you gave consent. All attendees on this meeting have been muted to ensure audio quality. And we're asking people to please use the chat to make comments and submit your questions at any time. You don't have to wait till the end. You can put them in the Q&A feature on the Zoom dashboard. And we have also reserved time at the end to address your questions. But you can also email a question or a comment to hsrc@acl.hhs.gov, which is on the slide. And just to know, everybody should have a copy of the slides or have received them. And then following the webinar, they're also going to be shared again, along with a feedback form for today's webinar. And finally, throughout the webinar, we're going to be using QR codes on the screen. So this is the one time you can use your phone. We encourage you to do so. There's going to be clickable links in the chat that we're going to share with you as well. So consider having your phone handy. Next slide. A note on accessibility. So as you see, we have an interpreter today, Emily Stiles. Thank you for being here. She is going to be visible throughout the webinar. You can enlarge the window of the ASL interpreter by using the pen feature. Just simply click on the ASL interpreter's window and select the pen icon to make their window larger. And to ensure that ASL interpreters will be visible in our webinar recording, we've also asked presenters and panelists to limit use of their own camera only when they're speaking. And for those who are using screen readers and want to silence unwanted chatter in the chat and the QA boxes, just activate the speech on demand feature by pressing Insert spacebar and then pressing the letter S on the keyboard. Okay, next slide. So before we get to today's topic, I just wanted you all, we wanted to ask you a question, ask if you would respond to the short poll. Does your program have a partnership with your state's assistive technology program? If you can just select one of those answers that apply to you, we would appreciate that. And then on the next slide, we are going to, while we're processing those results on the poll, I want to say a few words about the Housing and Services Resource Center, or what we affectionately call it, HSRC. HSRC is a partnership between the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Housing and Urban Development. So the HSRC is part of an interagency initiative to streamline and expand access to affordable, accessible housing and the critical services that make community living possible. So to that end, the HSRC fosters cross-sector partnerships between organizations and systems that provide housing resources and homelessness services across healthcare, mental health, independent living, and other supportive services. After the webinar, I hope you'll look at the HSRC website that's noted on this slide, and we'll share an email address at the end as well, so you can be in touch with us and get periodic updates about what we're up to. Next slide. All right, so do we have the poll results? Okay, please post the poll. And then while staff are displaying the results, I want to remind everybody to please use the chat and the Q&A function throughout this webinar, and because we really want to hear your comments and questions. And it looks like we have, it's across the board on people's partnerships with assistive technology programs. 17% say they have a formal partnership, and 27% say they don't partner, but they may in the future. And some of them provide INR. So thank you all for doing that today. We just want to encourage you, those of you who do have formal partnerships with your AT providers or your assistive technology programs, we would love to know who you're involved with. If you can write down or type in the chat what those partners are or who those partners are with your agencies, we'd love to know that, because that's a great example of cross-sector partnerships. Okay, next slide. Now to the main event, why you're all here, today's webinar. So this is a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing today. You're going to be learning about dynamic and responsive partnerships between our Centers for Independent Living, our continuums of care, and our statewide AT assistive technology programs. So I'm going to first talk a little bit about the Centers for Independent Living, or CILs that we call them, and their role in assisting individuals with disabilities that are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. And then we're going to hear from Rob, who will share some information about assistive technology and the ways statewide assistive technology programs help keep people housed. And then we're going to hear from our 3 presenters in New York and take some time to talk to them about what they're experiencing in the field and how their collaboration helps address homelessness in their communities. We're going to end with Q&A from you before we close, so be sure to type your questions in the Q&A function. And so first, let's start off by talking about our Centers for Independent Living. There are more than 350 federally funded and authorized Centers for Independent Living in every state and territory. They're led by and for people with disabilities. They're nonprofit, they're non-residential, and they provide a plethora of services like information referral, peer support, independent living skills training, and individual and systems advocacy to remove barriers that they have based on disability. They also help people transition out of homeless shelters or institutions and nursing homes into community-based housing. And with homelessness service providers seeing an increase in serving people with disabilities and older adults who are experiencing homelessness, CILs can provide their unique disability-driven perspective to help people get housed. They can connect them to the services that will help them stay housed as well. So CILs are out there empowering people to make choices where they live, and they provide the services that will help them stay permanently housed. And on that note, I know later on our panel, we'll have John talk more about CILs in his presentation. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Rob. Rob, do you want to go ahead and talk about assistive technology?
Thank you, Erica. Hello, my name is Rob Brindall. I serve as the Assistive Technology Program Manager at the Administration for Community Living in the Center for Innovation and Partnership. This slide has a picture of 2 people using a communication device. Aging and disability is a natural process, a part of life and the human experience. Assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, or product system used by a person to perform functions that would otherwise be difficult or impossible. AT devices and services enable individualized adaptations to everyday challenges. Depending on need and implementation, AT ranges from no or low tech to mid tech and high tech. Next slide. So the Assistive Technology Act programs were first authorized by Congress in 1988 to help people with disabilities across the lifespan to access technology solutions that address functional needs and challenges at home and in the community, at school, on the job, for accessibility, as well as mobility. The AT Act was recently reauthorized in late December 2022 as the 21st Century Assistive Technology Act. State and territory AT programs enable people to make informed decisions through AT device demonstrations and short-term loans. A person can experience and borrow an AT device, try it out at home in the community to determine if that device meets that person's specific needs. Next slide, please. This slide has a picture of a person using a mobile support device to safely enjoy gardening at a planter box. Assisted technology, durable medical equipment, and home modifications enhance housing accessibility. Technology specialists work with individuals who have functional needs to determine which AT or home modifications are appropriate for that person's home environment. AT programs help people to live in the home of their choice through devices for daily living activities, safety improvements in the home, such as installation of grab bars and hand railings, and accessibility modifications, including ramps and accessible bathrooms. Working with housing agencies and aging and disability networks is key to advancing housing stability in the community. Next slide, please. To locate the AT program in your state or territory, go to the AT3 Center website, which is here on this slide. And this slide also contains 3 small pictures of people using personal devices. I'm going to hand it back to you, Erica.
Thank you, Rob. So on that note, we're going to talk about continuums of care next. On the U.S. U.S. Housing and Urban Department, the HUD has the continuum of care, and these are backbone organizations that are designed to promote a community-wide commitment to end homelessness. The fact that they are a coalition of community-based organizations mean that they work together to find solutions to homelessness. So continuums of care, or CSCs, are funded by HUD, which awards over $2 billion each year to around 400 COCs. Those COCs then allocate funding to local nonprofits, state and local governments, and public housing authorities to fund specific projects aimed to reduce homelessness. We'll be putting a link in the chat to a page that will provide you more information about the COC program, including a list of all the 2022 awards so you can see as a reference. And there's also a link on this slide as well. Next slide, please. So now we'll be joined by 3 of our wonderful partners in New York State. We have John Zick is the Chief Operating Officer of a CIL called AIM Independent Living Center. Kelsey Addy is the Director of Planning for CARES of New York Incorporated. CARES is the collaborative applicant for HUD's COC program. And finally, we have Melinda Dolezal, the TRAID Director at the New York State Justice Center, which is the state's AT program. They are each going to share a little bit about the work they do and how the partnership helps inform and benefit the work they're doing to address rising homelessness amongst older adults and people with disabilities. So with that said, John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Erica. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Zick. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at AIM Independent Living Center in New York. We're located upstate in the Southern Tier, about 2 hours south of Rochester and an hour west of Binghamton. So I know Erica already eloquently told us what a CIL is, but just as a reminder, CILs are at the heart peer-run support centers for people with disabilities. Traditionally, I think Erica mentioned it, non-residential. CILs traditionally don't operate housing or residential services. We primarily try to get people out of institutions, promote integrated independent living opportunities. So why am I here? Well, we've known for a very, very long time that finding accessible and affordable housing for people with disabilities, still consumers, has always been a challenge, and people with disabilities are at a very much increased risk of homelessness. And because of this, AIM decided it needed to act and kind of shift away from tradition in an innovative way. If we want to see systems change, sometimes we need to change. Next slide, please. So about 6 years ago, we began to explore how we could create housing opportunities for people with disabilities most in need, i.e. homeless or at risk of homeless. So it all started when we applied for a grant opportunity in New York to provide permanent supportive housing to people with disabilities. So there's always 2 different components to supportive housing. There's the support services side, And then there's the actual physical housing, the capital side. So by law, independent living centers or SILs aren't supposed to have residential housing. So what AIM did was we started a separate corporation to hold property. So the SIL would be the support service provider, and this new corporation, AIM Community Living, would be essentially the property owner and run the property. Next slide, please. So in the last 6 years, we've done quite a bit of work. As we sit here now, AIM currently operates 2 permanent supportive housing projects. They are independent and integrated in the community. We have a 3rd project that's nearing startup. We hope to have it operational by the end of 2023. And we've secured 2 additional permanent supportive housing grants with a target opening of 2025. The populations we're currently serving are seniors who need assistance with an ADL, veterans with a disability, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, youth. Our project we're operationalizing now is for people with substance use disorder, and the ones in 2025 are more senior housing, vets, and chronically homeless housing. Next slide, please. So through this process over the last 6 years, we had to work with our local CoC for support. When we first started this, I didn't know what a CoC was. I'm now very, very familiar with what a CoC is. So we learned more about the local system for homelessness services. And during that process, we provided our insight and expertise on disability and what people with disability were facing as it relates to housing. The partnership proved so fruitful that we were actually asked to join the CoC board, which I did, I think, 2018 or 19. And then later on was asked to consider running for the CoC co-chair position. And I've been in that capacity since 2021. So as a representative of the CoC, AIM acts in the best interest of all people who are homeless, but we continue to ensure that the system considers disability and its strategies and practices. Next slide, please. So the partners, AIM works hand in hand with CARES of New York, the collaborative applicant and partner of the CoC. They really kind of act as the executive arm of the CoC through their paid staff, and we're going to hear from Kelsey in just a few minutes. So AIM worked to increase the supply of affordable, accessible housing in the state. We've sought assistance and expertise from the AT program, and we'll hear from Melinda in just a little bit. The program provides short-term loans in part to help people access their homes. These partners are also working to provide solutions to homelessness and housing instability for people of New York by making the existable housing more accessible. Next slide, please. Just a couple of, I don't even know if these are best practices or just a little bit of advice, but some common sense probably too. Partnerships can help bridge the gaps in service delivery. Understanding the process and red tape of various regulations and programs allows for a greater understanding of how best to serve shared populations. So if you have the right people at the table, you're in a far better position to problem solve or get through that red tape or come up with innovative solutions. So sometimes it's best to step outside your comfort zone and use your voice in a way maybe you aren't traditionally used to. Next slide, please. The next slide might not be mine. That might be the last thing I have to say. I have one more slide. Success story. So we have 20 operational units now. We've had 10 people when we first opened in 2019, our first project. 10 of those folks who rented up in that first month are still in their housing. A lot of residents have found this super duper beneficial. And one of our residents recently told us, transitioning from a skilled nursing facility to this program gave me opportunities that I had not had, nor would I have had It gave me the opportunity to transition to a nice, safe, and affordable unit. I had literally nothing and would not have had anything. It is allowing me to be out in public. Due to my disability, I thought I would always be stuck inside. Meeting friends, having the support here has certainly helped my mental health. So that's a real world kind of experience from someone our partnership has helped. And with that, I think I am now passing it off to our AT partner and Melinda Dolezal.
Thank you, John, and thank you everybody for being here on this afternoon. I almost said lovely afternoon, but I know you're from all over the place, so hopefully it's lovely where you are. As John said, my name is Melinda Dolezal. I am the director of the Technology-Related Assistance for Individuals with Disabilities program, which is the AT program in New York. If you haven't had contact with your state AT program, I highly recommend you check out the AT3 link. We get questions all the time. I literally got a question yesterday from somebody in New Jersey asking where their program was. So we're happy to get you guys in touch if you're not sure. So I'm just going to give you guys an overview of how we do things in New York as far as our AT program and how it relates to John and Kelsey's work with homelessness in their region. So if you go to the next slide, please. So our services in New York are pretty much the same in many ways as services that you'll see in your different states as well. If you go to the next slide, without going into too much detail, we offer things such as device loans. So kind of like a library, taking things home to see if they will work for you or work for the person that you're working with. There are 12 regional trade centers in New York. They offer loans as well as demonstrations, which is comparing and contrasting different devices to see what's going to work best for somebody. We offer trainings, public awareness. We offer technical assistance, everything that falls under the AT Act. Many of our trade centers also do 3D printing, and the work at AIM, I can't stress enough, has made a huge impact in their region. And I oversee the statewide program in terms of our the services that we're offering and data collection. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention Hannah Harness, who is the trade staff at AIM. She's fantastic. Hannah alone has consulted and provided technical assistance to the homeless housing project in Chemung County, which, as John said, serves people a variety of backgrounds. And the other 11 trade centers, are doing work in their various regions that work with people of all ages and all demographics. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is just a couple of examples. There are thousands of pieces of equipment out there that would fall under assistive technology. Each trade center has their own inventories, their own equipment. If you start up at the top of this picture on the top left, that is some assistive technology for somebody to use the bathroom. It's a movable kind of stand that can help with somebody to brace themselves. And again, there's many different types of equipment that can be used for these different things. The blue item slightly to the right is a device that can help somebody get out of bed. It helps kind of leverage them in order to do so. The last picture at top right is a device used to help somebody stir up some food in a bowl. Bottom left is a medication administration device for somebody that might forget to take their meds. This one has an alarm on it and can be locked so that people can't get in and kind of move things around. Next to that is a sock aid to help somebody get dressed that may not be able to, maybe they have some injuries to their back. They don't have a lot of flexibility. Great device, very simple, easy to use. And some of our stuff can be just as simple as large print playing cards, which you can see there, for somebody that wants to get out and spend time with their friends, but may, as they get older, may need something extra to be able to see clearly. And then on the right, all the way there, is an alarm clock. So this particular alarm clock has a little disc to the right that kind of vibrates to help somebody wake up that might be hard of hearing. It's extra loud as well, if that's going to help somebody. So these are just some examples of some daily living devices. We select our inventory based on feedback from community members and stakeholders. So people that we partner with, such as Department of Health, we work with them for Money Follows the Person, as well as early intervention for the little guys, birth to 3. We also work with Access VR, which is our state vocational rehabilitation agency. So we have the most variety of equipment as possible that people will be able to use, as Rob said, at home, at school, and at work. We go to the next slide. So of the 12 trade centers, we have a great variety. 7 of them are independent living centers, just like AIM is in their region. We love our independent living centers. They're really one-stop shops for everything from benefits advisement. Many of them have resources such as, not all, but some have resources for food banks, for different waiver enrollments. And so of the other centers that aren't independent living centers, we really encourage them to get in touch with those in their region. 3 are human services agencies such as cerebral palsy associations. We have one that's a wraparound services based agency. 2 are state universities, so our centers at the University of Buffalo and SUNY Plattsburgh, for those of you that have been way up north. And 1 is a University Center of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. So all 12 bring an amazing flavor to the table and are great at what they do. And they do it all differently based on the feedback in their region. So if you go to the next slide. So how do we do assistive technology in housing? So for us, if you go on another slide, we, as I mentioned, work with the Department of Health for Money Follows the Person. We focus a lot on helping people transition out of nursing homes and congregate settings. And between 2020 and 2022, we helped over 2,500 people transition out of nursing homes back into independent housing, and that's across New York State. The equipment that we help them to be able to borrow helps them maintain independence at home and in the community. And we also provide trainings and technical assistance to aging staff. Oh, I do apologize. I do tend to speak a little bit quickly. I want to make sure that our other speakers have plenty of time to share their very valuable information. So we try to support people in the field as well as the people that are borrowing our equipment as well, so that they can share this information in as many settings as possible. You could go to the next slide. Each of our 12 trade centers, as I said, works with various community organizations. I have 2 examples here. The first is up at Plattsburgh. Our staff there works with the Alzheimer's Disease Assistance Center's Caregiver Support Initiative. They basically work with, family members and staff that are supporting family members take care of aging parents or aging relatives, so that they have the equipment that they need for the family to stay independent at home as long as possible. And wraparound services of the Hudson Valley's Project Act helps people be discharged from nursing homes by finding equipment in the community that is no longer needed, that can then be donated to individuals to keep to maintain their independence. You go to the next slide. So just some other notes about New York really quickly. We do provide temporary loans, as I said, very much like a library. People can borrow from us. They, either the person using the AT, their family members, the staff that they work with in order to help them. It doesn't matter to us as long as the AT is applicable. We don't do home modifications in New York, but we do share resources that can help people. And this includes waiver programs like our home and community-based services waivers. There are low interest AT loan programs in New York, such as the National Disability Institute and the Equipment Loan Fund. And there are various community organizations that we can refer people to as well. But several devices that we have been able to loan people that we can go in and then provide to somebody and then successfully take them back once they're no longer needed are things like temporary grab bars for bathrooms, door alarms, some types of ramps that can be like suitcase ramps that can be temporarily put in. As long as it's ADA compliant, we want people to be safe and able to maintain independence. If you go to the next slide. The last piece of information I have for you is my contact information. So this contact information is on the AT3 website, but if you ever have questions about your AT programs or you would like to just kind of go over anything, please feel free to reach out. That is my direct email and my phone number. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Kelsey so she can share her awesome information as well.
Thanks very much, Melinda. Thanks for having me. My name is Kelsey Addy, and I am the Director of Planning with CARES of New York. Next slide, please. CARES of New York is a nonprofit organization based in Albany that empowers communities to end homelessness through community planning, program data, supportive housing, and awareness building. Next slide, please. We achieve this mission in a number of ways, including owning and operating supportive housing, as well as being the administrative arm of several continuums of care in upstate New York, like John mentioned. The piece of work that I'll be referencing most today is our role as the CoC collaborative applicant and planning lead. Next slide, please. So you already heard a little bit about this, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what is a continuum of care for those of you who may not be familiar. A continuum of care is both a federal funding stream through HUD, as well as a planning body. Next slide, please. CoC funding provides funding to address homelessness, largely through providing rental assistance and support services. Those eligible to apply include nonprofits, tribal entities, and government agencies. And there are a variety of types of housing programs you can design with CoC funding. And this includes things like long-term permanent supportive housing or more bridge programs like rapid rehousing. But ultimately, the takeaway is that funding is intended to serve households experiencing homelessness who have the most severe service needs. As mentioned before, the term CoC also refers to a planning body, which is made up of a board, membership, and committees. Stakeholders join the continuum of care and work on different committees in an effort to inform how CoC funding is spent and to collaboratively work on processes to best address homelessness in their area. CARE's role in this as a collaborative applicant of the continuum of care is to support the annual funding application to HUD for these housing programs, and also to work on a year-round basis with the board, membership, and committees to move locally identified work forward to best address homelessness in the area. And AIM, who you heard from John earlier, is part of the NY 501 Continuum of Care, which is located in the southern tier of New York State. Next slide, please. And ultimately, we're very lucky to have AIM on the CoC board as one of the CoC's goals, and not to mention one of HUD's expectations, is that the CoC is representative of relevant organizations serving homeless populations within the CoC's geographic area. So we've seen many benefits as a result of AIM being on the Continuum of Care board, and from attempting to ensure that we have a board of diverse community providers. So first, having players at the table who aren't entrenched in CoC work allows for good questioning about how the CoC operates. And this ensures that we're really doing necessary level setting work all the time so that we're welcoming to new members who may not know kind of the alphabet soup. And it also brings fresh perspectives to the table, you know, questioning how things have maybe always been done, but could be done in a different way to more effectively reach our goals. Second, having AIM and other agencies that serve various populations at the table allows for representative input on how to prioritize CoC funding based on the needs of those agencies are seeing. Third, and probably most important, is collaboration has allowed us to better meet the needs of those experiencing homelessness and living with disabilities. So what we've seen is that when agencies collaborate to streamline housing and services, that burden of coordinating is taken off of the clients, making it easier for those experiencing challenging circumstances to get the support that they need. So an example of this that John had talked about is how AIM developed permanent supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness and living with disabilities. In implementing that program, AIM has coordinated with the CoC to take clients off of the CoC's community-wide waitlist when they have openings. And this coordination ensures that clients aren't having to apply to multiple programs to access housing and services, and really puts the burden of that coordination on us as agencies and service providers. And fourth, when agencies collaborate across systems of care or support, it allows for sharing of best practices. So for example, as you heard, SILs are peer-run support centers. And similarly, the CoC is deeply committed to having peers and persons with lived expertise of homelessness make up its membership and boards. So we have a lot that we can learn from AIM about how to establish peer-run leadership, and we look forward to doing that. Next slide, please. So I just want to thank you for your time and having me, and I look forward to the Q&A portion.
Thank you so much, Kelsey, for sharing that. And I wanted to thank all of our amazing presenters for the information they shared with us today. I'm going to ask you all to stick around so that we can answer some of the questions that are in the chat. But while we pull those, I just want to ask you all, I know earlier we had asked on the poll if you had partnerships with your AT programs. I know some of the AT programs were like, I am an AT program. So yes, I do. So this is your chance to be able to answer the question on if your agency partnered with SILs in your state. So we don't have a poll for this one. If you can just put it in the chat, that will help us to know who all is partnering with who. And if you haven't partnered with your local Center for Independent Living, please feel free to check out the link that's provided on the slide. We'll also put the link in the chat so that you'll be able to access that. Okay, next slide. So we're to our question and answer component, and I'm going to kick it off by a question for the panel that was received from Casey Ostern. And it says, Casey, you had written, while permanent supportive housing is vital, here in my area, we are seeing significant problems with folks who are currently homeless, being in shelters which are not able to support their care needs with AT or other supports. Have you all found any ways of addressing these short-term needs while permanent housing is found? Does anybody on the panel want to be able to tackle that question?
Melinda, please.
No, I was gonna, as far as TRAID, we do loan devices, certain types of devices to people, whether they are homeless or not. For us, it doesn't matter if the person's housing situation or background. Obviously some things that are, bigger or more, have a lot more stuff to them would be difficult, but we have loaned things like durable medical equipment for mobility are some of the most common ones. We've had referrals from our No Wrong Door agency in New York, which is New York Connects. So we had a woman who was referred to us whose home had burned down and she was living in a hotel. We ended up getting her a wheelchair to help her be able to navigate while more permanent housing was found for her. So there's not a perfect answer, but as far as TRAID is concerned, we will continue to be a resource for people in that situation.
Thank you, Melinda. And did anybody else have any other comments on that? Okay, then I have specific questions for all of you. And also for those attending today, if you have questions that you want for our panel to address related to this issue around homelessness and AT, please feel free to put it in the chat. The first question I have is for AIM. John, what do you think is one milestone your SIL would not have been able to reach without the partnership that you have now? Like, think of it before and now. What's been the biggest difference?
Honestly, we wouldn't have our housing program without the expertise and the leadership and partnership of CARES of New York and the CoC in general. We knew that there was a need in the people we were serving for housing, and we wanted to help find a solution, but we had no expertise in it. We didn't know how to really even go about establishing more housing, going about it the right way, being a part of a larger partnership locally, the homelessness supportive services system. So we've really leaned on our partners in the CoC and CARES to direct and guide us. And as I mentioned, it's just turned out to be so mutually beneficial. We've been able to increase the stock of permanent supportive housing. And, we've been able to lend our disability expertise to all of our other partners who are addressing homelessness locally.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And then this is a question that continues to come up as well around funding for people with disabilities who need AT but can't afford it because they're on SSI or on poverty. I know this came from Harm Tarrant, but then I know we had another question about if it's covered under health insurance as well. And I know specifically Harm had brought up, we have a donate and recycle program for AT, but there isn't much funding in their SIL for anything outside of donations. So I don't know if anybody wants to tackle funding for AT, what's the options that are available, or if there's anything under insurance that would cover that.
I can take that one.
Thanks, Melinda.
You're welcome. So in New York, there are 2 low interest loan programs that are very, very underutilized. The first is the Equipment Loan Fund, which is operated by the Commission for the Blind, which provides, as I said, low interest loans. It's, when I say it's underutilized, I mean almost nobody, applies who would probably benefit from it. They're very flexible. We understand people, many people are on limited incomes, and it's especially difficult now. When I say that they will go as low as $10 payments a month, they're fantastic. We also encourage people to explore things like the HCBS waiver. There are other waivers in New York that will sometimes cover home modifications and assistive technology. Some assistive technology is covered by insurance, not everything. And if anybody is ever denied or has questions about whether something is covered, there's an agency in New York called Disability Rights New York. Every state should have a disability rights New York similar type of agency that helps with questions related to eligibility for things like Medicaid, for denial for different things, even outside of assistive technology. You can also check for your state's P&A, Protection and Advocacy Agency, which for us is DRNY. They have a specific wing of their agency called the PAT, or the Protection and Advocacy for Assistive Technology. So that's also an option. We try to give people as many, bits of information as possible. And we also try to know what organizations in certain counties might be able to help as well. So your local Lions Club, Rotary, a lot of times they have community projects like this that will help with modification. Not all of them, and some of them even have their own inventories, their own loan closets. So in New York, TRAID's not the only game in town. We try to know who else is doing it as well. And part of that is really just knowing and collaborating and knowing who your neighbors are and who your networks are.
Thank you. I appreciate that thorough response. That's really helpful. And it seems like there's a lot of questions too around, AT. And I know that there has been a lot of talk about the rise of homelessness among people with disabilities and older adults. And I think for, any of you on this panel, can you speak about how any of your programs assist with discharge planning from institutions for people that have histories of homelessness, like chronic homelessness? And then is there any data collected on these successful efforts? And I'm thinking, Kelsey, is there anything with the CoC that they're collecting? Can any of you speak about that, how you're addressing chronic homelessness and how these programs assist?
Sure. I can start by saying that discharge planning is a topic that comes up a lot among continuums of care from all sorts of systems, from reentry, from criminal justice, healthcare, mental health care, and it's certainly a challenge. But I think that the more that we can partner with those other systems, and for example, educate on our community-wide wait list, which is called coordinated entry, and the process for supporting households in applying for housing through that system, the more that we can hopefully make those transitions as smooth as possible. I don't know if anyone else would add anything.
There's, as Kelsey mentioned, just several different types of institutional settings, but as an independent living center, I think Melinda was touching on this, that we have a lot of different programs that work with folks as they discharge from long-term care, from like a skilled nursing setting, to set up a successful discharge, to make sure all the services, equipment is in place for a successful discharge. That's just one variety. It certainly does get more challenging as you talk about leaving incarceration or, sometimes mental health settings. But AIM does have a role to play in some discharges from institutional settings. And we find that they're far more successful when there's a collaborative plan in place between an institution and community-based providers.
I just thought of one more thing that I wanted to add. This is Kelsey. One of the major challenges when we have these conversations about discharge planning is that there's so much more need for housing than there is available. And so I think the other part of this equation is the development of housing. And that's why we're so grateful to players like AIM and John for stepping into that field, even though it hasn't traditionally been stepped into by their agency. Because without creating additional housing opportunities, we're always going to have this bottleneck effect.
Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah, this is just one of those wicked problems that is going to continue unless we do engage in these collaborative partnerships. And I think I just wanted to throw out another question for the group. I guess, what do you think, what is the most creative solution, I guess? Melinda, I think this is for you, because I think a lot of people are wondering what kind of AT should be used in some of these, shelter settings or short-term settings or transition settings. What is the most creative solution you've implemented to meet an accessibility need of somebody who's experiencing homelessness?
There's so much out there. Creativity wise, I mean, I'll back up and say that, we get asked this a lot, like, what's the most common thing that, will kind of apply to a big group of people. But I really want to emphasize that each person is unique in terms of what their needs are. So we've had questions about things like mobility. What's the best type of mobility device for somebody? And you have to look at a lot of different things, such as, are they able to ambulate for certain amounts of distance in there where they're looking to move? What are the door, how wide are the door frames? Are there steps? Is there a ramp? Does there need to be a ramp? How high are the counters if they're in a wheelchair? Are they able to get at these different things? So I would say, rather than say, what are the most common pieces of equipment, look at the person in particular and kind of, with a person-centered approach as much as possible, look at the types of AT that are out there. So maybe a rollator for certain types of things, which if you don't know what a rollator is, it's more or less the walker with the seat. That's what we hear quite a lot, what people describe it as. Or, do they need a wheelchair because of, lack of ambulation, but do they need a power chair? Do they need an electric or not electric chair, a manual wheelchair, a transport chair? So things like that. I would say creativity wise, there's more and more things are coming up with, in terms of smart home technology. So if you are, probably a lot of you use this in your own homes and may not realize it. So these are things like Alexa, that can control things like lighting, door, whether or not somebody's at the door. They can have a lot of, whether or not somebody needs to call 911. And a lot of times they're very inexpensive. People think they're more expensive than they are. So we've had a lot of people be successful with minimal pieces of equipment like that. If somebody's worried about, safety in a residence, or whether or not somebody is able to maintain safety once they're there. We're doing a lot of things with 3D printing for the time being. And 3D printing is, and when I say time being, I mean, we're planning indefinitely as well, but little things, can go a long way. And just some of the things that we're making are things for zipper pulls, key guards for communication devices for somebody that might have, difficulty getting to a button on an iPad without it. So I don't want to go on too long, but I would say, some people respond really well to, the less technical things or the, lower tech, and some to the more high tech. I wish I could give you more examples. Again, I would go on all day. So if you're curious, please feel free to reach out to me, because each case is unique, in terms of somebody might need just the tiniest little thing. I'll say one quick story, not so much about, it's sort of about independence at home. We had a gentleman with Parkinson's come in who had difficulty feeding himself because of tremors. There is a device called a liftware spoon, which if you've never seen it, is a self-balancing spoon that kind of counterbalances a tremor. He was able to eat independently and was so happy with finding this device. He turned to his wife and said, "We're going out for dinner." That can make a huge difference. So look at things like that, when you work with your AT programs. I hope that kind of what you were looking for. I'm sorry.
No, it was great. Thank you, Melinda. That's really helpful. I think that sometimes when we think about sheltering people that are homeless, including people with disabilities and older adults, sometimes we forget that there's little things that can help to make sure people retain their housing and don't end up back homeless. So these ideas and resources are very helpful to be able to add to the bag of things that we can do to help address it. And I guess I just want to say we have like a few more minutes before we have to start closing, but I want to give you all a chance to do closing comments. Is there something burning that you want to say that the audience should get before they leave today? Go ahead, John.
I think my closing sentiment is a piggyback on what Melinda was just talking about, and it's utilize your local partners. The question was, hey, we're having some difficulty in our local shelter with accessibility or assistive equipment. Contact your local Center for Independent Living, contact your local AT program. They can provide that level of expertise to help you try to problem solve. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway. Use the resources that you have locally who are experts in that field. Get them to the table. You never know what kind of innovative solutions you might come up with. And thank you everyone for attending and listening to me rant for an hour. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Did anybody have any other closing comments they'd like to say?
Network. I go to as many committee meetings, conferences, councils, fun events, more serious events, because you never know who you'll meet. I mean, with TRAID, we partner with, as many universities, like we've had college students reach out to us and say, I want to fabricate toys for children with disabilities. We would love to meet with them. We had people reach out to us and say, I want to help with different events in the community for cycling or for, recreation, getting outdoors. Remember their names, keep it in your back pocket in case something comes up, because so many big things can grow from those partnerships, and you really get them by, going out and, in my case, being that bubbly, boisterous person that's always trying to make those connections. So just like what John said, get to know your neighbors in other agencies, especially your AT programs. We're very friendly people and we love meeting you. So yeah, keep us in the back of your mind.
Thank you, Melinda. And then Kelsey, I was going to say, give you a chance too.
I just wanted to say, if you are not connected to your continuum of care, there are, as was mentioned, 400 nationwide. So I think, one of the benefits of being at the table is that collaboration. It's groups of stakeholders meeting regularly, brainstorming on how to best address homelessness. And the second piece that I'll say is, again, just reinforcing that if you are working with the population and seeing that there's not housing available for that population, maybe think about stepping into that development sphere, just because there's such a lack of housing at all levels and for all different types of populations right now. And I'm sure that your CoC would probably be supportive as needed in order to make that happen.
Thank you, Kelsey. And Rob, my ACO colleague, did you want to have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was excellent, just to emphasize what has been said. Resource coordination with the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, AT programs, independent living centers, CoCs. Just, get to know your partners, and plan ahead. Think about fall prevention, think about alerting systems for fire alarms and all the things that are available out there to help sustain living in the home of your choice.
Thank you, Rob. And I have to say, we saw a whole bunch of questions that we didn't get to in the chat. I know people were asking about those that were involved with justice, that coming out of corrections, or those that are hoarders. And so just think about the issues you're trying to tackle and who's on your team, because you're not expected to be expert over everything. That's why the CoC is there, and that's why you collaborate, so you can help address some of these issues. And know that we didn't give you all your answers today. So I'm going to give you some resources to follow up to be able to help connect you with more information. So I just want to say, first of all, a big thank you to all our panelists. You guys all did a great job, a lot of information in a short amount of time. And we just want to thank you for your innovative ideas and programs. And we hope you as the audience learned the importance of the partnerships and what made them effective and how they work together. I think we all heard opportunities that we can probably act on in the coming weeks. And just before we close, I want to remind you all that in the coming days, we're going to post the recording of this webinar and the slides on the HSRC website. So you'll be able to send it to people if they weren't able to attend, or if you need to refer back to something, you're able to access it. In the meantime, please keep using the HSR website, which staff is putting in the chat, and it's also on the slide, so you'll be able to access it later. Okay, next slide. Okay, but before you go, remember I told you we only gave you a little bit of information this time, well, a lot in a short amount of time, but we wanted to alert you of another HSRC webinar that's coming up on August 7th, and it expands on some of the themes that we already discussed today. And so we hope you'll register for that one too, so you can get more information. If you want to be added to our HSRC email group, if you haven't already, just send an email to hsrc@acl.hhs.gov. It's also on this slide to be added to our list. And on the next slide is our QR code. Let us know how we're doing. Take 3 minutes to answer. There's only 5 questions, so it's not too intense. Provide us some feedback about today's webinar. Staff is also going to put the link in the chat. And if you have other comments about today, you can provide them as well. Just know that we read all of your comments, and we always look for ways to act on your input when you're providing information. Next slide. So we want to hear from you. The HSRC is your resource center. So please feel free to email us at any time if you have any technical assistance ideas or trainings, website suggestions, success stories, or if you want to share more information about your own innovative cross-sector partnership. We do want to hear from you, because that's how we learn, is from hearing from our community as well. Next slide. And we can't end without thanking Mission Analytics, US Aging, Emily Stiles, our ASL interpreter, for keeping up with us as we talk fast. And Mary, our CART specialist, thank you also for keeping up with us. And all of your roles for your roles in producing today's webinar. We're especially grateful for everyone who joined us today. So we appreciate you attending. We hope you have a great day or evening wherever you are. Thanks again.